Number one tip to getting your very first wholesale deal. What's up YouTube? Biz Matthew here. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to break down the number one tip to getting your very first deal. And I'm going to look back on how I got my very first deal and the mistakes I made, and for you to avoid those mistakes. If you all find value from this video, please be sure to subscribe, comment down below, and like this video. So the number one tip to getting your very first wholesale deal. So let's start. It took me about 8 to 9 months to get my very first wholesale deal, to actually close on my very first wholesale deal. I started earlier in the year and I ended up closing my deal at the end of August, so that's 8 months total. And so I made a lot of mistakes along the way. One of the mistakes I made was not concentrating enough on the business, not taking it serious. I was just kind of doing it haphazardly, not really taking it that serious, and that really slowed down me getting that very first wholesale deal. Now, the other mistake that I made was I stuck with one marketing plan a little bit too long. So when I first started, I was watching videos, listening to podcasts, and people were talking about texting. And so that was actually the very first marketing technique I tried in my wholesale real estate business. However, it just didn't work in my market. And that's the thing that I want to relate to you guys and talk to you all about, is that you have to test your marketing techniques in your market, right? Because cold calling may not work as well as direct mail in your market, or direct mail may not work as well as PPC ads. And so you have to understand that if you start with a marketing technique, try that out for a couple of weeks, but if nothing hits, you have to move on to the next marketing technique. Now, if you've done all the different types of marketing technique, maybe you just have to tweak exactly what you're doing within those marketing methods and marketing push outs in order to really realize like what's happening on your end and why aren't you getting any type of response from any sort of sellers. So yeah. And so for me, I started with texting, and then I did that for a couple months, way too long. And then I looked at my market. So I noticed the area, it's a little bit more slower pace. Technology is still here, but it's not as advanced as other areas of America. Yes, technology is advanced in America as a whole, but some places respond better to, I guess, more traditional ways than other areas. And so I went to direct mail. And so when I went to direct mail, that changed a lot. I started getting more responses from sellers. I started just getting in the motion, being in the business. I actually felt like I was running something. I was calling back sellers, I was doing follow-ups, and it just changed a lot for me in my wholesale real estate business. Now, with your marketing technique, the number one tip that I was talking about earlier in this video that I want to share, even though I probably gave a couple good tips that you all should use in your real estate wholesale business. So that number one tip is to be consistent. Consistency is everything. Because when I first started, yes, I took a course actually. I pushed out text and everything like that, but it just didn't land because I wasn't consistent with it. I wasn't consistently pushing out text, consistently following up with sellers, consistently trying to reach out to cash buyers, consistently trying to learn as much as I can in this business. So the number one tip to getting that very first wholesale deal, to getting $10,000 every single month from your business, especially early on, is to be consistent. So when I went and I jumped from texting to direct mail, that's when the business changed, because with direct mail, I was way more consistent. I know direct mail is expensive, and maybe in your market and your budget just doesn't allow for direct mail. But for me, during that time when I got my first deal, it just really helped my business. And so direct mail, I was being consistent and pushing out the mailers every single week. And I dedicated a portion of my budget to direct mail. I was all like, okay, I know this is expensive. Let me just start off with a list of 500 and do that 500 list several times. Or what you can do is you can get a list of 2,000 and segment them out by $500. And so you can send out one $500 every single week, a different 500 list every single week for a month, right? And then repeat that the next month. So there's different variations that you can do to work in your business. For me, I think I took about 1,000 people and I just sent mailers to that same list. Like I was sending it 4 or 5 times before I really got the seller that I ended up closing my very first wholesale deal. So it does take consistency. And then on top of that, I contacted the seller several times and met at the seller's house several times before I actually close on the deal. So being consistent with your follow-up is key. Follow up, follow up, follow up. And as you all probably hear from YouTube videos, podcasts, and different educational sources, being on your follow-up is key. You have to follow up with your sellers. You have to follow up with your cash buyers. You have to follow up with people, but especially with sellers, I mean, that's what gets you the deal. And so following up with them is something that I took seriously and really changed my business. And what I did for my business that you can implement in your business is you can categorize your sellers. Now, some people do hot, medium, cold. What I like to how I like to categorize them is as like timeline. So I'm all like, okay, this is a follow-up. I need to follow up every 1 or 2 days because this person is a hot lead. This person, I can follow up once a week. They're kind of hot, medium, category for interested or motivated to sell. Or, hey, this person, I need to follow up with them every 3 weeks, every month, right? They're kind of medium. And then colder is like, okay, every 6 months, just follow up with the seller, see what they're thinking. They did express a little bit of interest, but they said maybe not right now, or they have to do this or that, and follow up with them because you never know. I've had deals like that where it seemed like, okay, this person, it kind of seemed like they were interested, but not really. But I'm going to keep them on a retainer for following up with them every 6 months or so. And once I did that, that really helped my business and I was able to close a few deals. Now, I know I talk about consistency a lot and people want practical ways on how to be consistent in your business. And so one of the ways that I just talked about was just creating an Excel sheet, right, with your follow-ups and having a tab for following up once a week, having a tab for following up every month, following up for every 1 or 2 days, right? Have those tabs. That's a practical way to follow up, especially if you don't have money for a fancy CRM system or anything like that. Another practical way is to budget your money, save your money. If you have a work job, set aside money for your marketing and understand that, hey, I can't just save up money for 1 week worth of marketing. I need to save up money for a couple of weeks, a couple of months worth of marketing in order to really take this business serious and to get deals with wholesale real estate. Sending out mailers, doing cold calling or texting, set aside that money. Of course, direct mail is more expensive than cold calling and texting. And if you want to start off with a cold caller, hiring somebody, you can do that too. I know some people start off that way instead of starting off calling themselves. Now, as a beginner, I do recommend you get on the phones first so you can understand what to say and how to train your caller. That's the very best way that I recommend people to do. Finding cold callers can be a little bit difficult, but there are different websites, Upwork, Fiverr. There's this Filipino website too. I forgot what it's called, but you can find cold callers who actually have a decent English accent that can just go over just the different cold call scripts that you use in order to close your deal. I know that was a little bit about cold calling, but I just wanted to show and give you all practical ways to implement consistency in your business. Now, getting that very first wholesale deal, especially in today's market, consistency is more important than ever because there's not enough housing in the market right now. And so making sure you can appeal to your buyer and find something for them will really set you apart. Because it's winter right now, 2023 is coming to a close and you may be thinking, hey, I haven't gotten my deal, but maybe you can make small wins along the way. Maybe you can be like, I met with a seller at their house, or I was able to actually talk to someone who was somewhat motivated, right? You got to count those small wins along the way. And the other thing about consistency was being consistent with your education of this business, like consistently viewing these videos that I have on wholesale real estate and subscribing to Biz Matthew. But there are other great channels that you can watch that you may prefer over this one. And being consistent with reading books, listening to podcasts, and other things like that. All right, you all, hope you all enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment down below, and I'll talk to you all later.